The day Nora Whitaker came back to Alder Cove, the ocean did not whisper. It roared. It sounded like applause no one wanted to claim. Salt rode the wind, smoke rode the salt, and the small blue house on the bluff looked like a tired friend waiting at the door. Nora was not here for nostalgia. She was here because there was nowhere else to go. After her husband passed, retired sheriff, stubborn and kind, her life shrank to three things: a pension, a silence, and an old coffee maker that grumbled like a judgmental neighbor. The kids had moved states away. Friends drifted into their own storms. Silence grew louder than noise. On the first breath at the threshold, she caught it. Not chimney smoke, not campfire, wildfire. That scent lives at the back of a dispatcher's mind forever. And Nora had been a 911 dispatcher for 30 years. She knew the difference between a story and a warning. Across the street, Mrs. Barton, hair like a rope coil, eyes wired awake, stood by her battered rambler. No greeting, only news. They sold the North Spit, she said. Private marina. Silver Grove gets bulldozed. Silver Grove. A mobile home park with a stubborn soul. Veterans on fixed incomes. Retired teachers who still knew everyone's birthdays. Single mothers juggling 2 jobs, 3 kids, and a cat that hated everyone but the youngest. People who made a town a town. When did the vote happen? Nora asked. Last week. Behind closed doors. Mrs. Barton's voice thinned. Public hearing tonight. A formality, they say. The deal's already inked. Far inland, something thrummed. Low, steady. Not thunder. Rotors. A helicopter sweeping the ridge. Lightning hit Fern Ridge, Mrs. B. Barton added. The timber's dry as paper. If the wind shifts toward us, we'll eat smoke by supper. Nora felt the old current wake up in her chest. Not panic. Purpose. Inside, she opened a dusty cabinet and pulled out a small ham transceiver. Her husband used to grin when he checked its batteries. When the world goes quiet, he'd say, you go on the air. She extended the antenna, cleaned a grimy contact, and set the dial with hands that still remembered frequencies better than birthdays. Click. A breath. Then her voice, low and calm, the way fear understands best. Alder Cove, this is V Nora on 146.520. Radio check. Who's with me? For a beat, only static. Then a baritone broke through, warm as dockwood in noon sun. This is Gray Marlin. I read you 5 by 5. Fire is real. Fern Ridge, east face. Wind trending west. Another voice joined. Then another. A lattice of people snapped into place. Fishermen, retired EMTs, an ex-mail carrier who knew every mailbox by heart. They built an improvised net in minutes. Spotters, runners, a volunteer medic called Doc in the old airplane hangar. And one report cut through the hum like a siren. Road into Silver Grove is blocked. A woman crackled. Developer trucks. And June's still there. Asthma. No car. June. Nora's teenage drummer friend from long ago. Laugh like tambourines. Now lungs like paper. Copy, Nora said. Hold your channel. She set the mic down, not to rest, to move. The town hall sat over the harbor like a stubborn barnacle. Paint, polish, and the scent of coffee poured too long. Inside, a mayor rehearsing authority, a developer in a suit too pleased with itself, and a lawyer whose smile had temperature. The clerk, young, tired, decent, handed Nora a thin stack. Your speaking slip is second, she whispered. And the minutes from the closed session. You're entitled to see them. Nora read fast. Where there should have been public comment, the page said, closed for confidential commercial proposal. Below that, a 2-word fire safety note, not applicable. She held the paper like a burn. When they called her name, Nora did not shout. Dispatchers never do. Her voice walked the room step by step. My name is Nora Whitaker. I sat on a 911 line for 3 decades. I heard houses burn because someone typed not applicable. You sold the land where our elders and low-wage families live. You cut their water before this hearing. You block their road while a wildfire climbs the ridge. You call it development. I call it neglect. A hush spread, heavy as wet wool. The lawyer lifted her chin. We appreciate your feelings, Ms. Whitaker, but feelings? Nora's tone didn't rise. It sharpened. When a person can't breathe, that's not a feeling. That's lungs. Applause slapped the walls. The mayor fussed about order. But Nora's phone vibrated, and order was a luxury. June worsening. Trucks still blocking. Ambulance turned away. She left without asking permission. At the pier, her old canoe waited like a memory refusing the attic. The bay had turned smoky pewter. A teen in a backward cap ran down, breathless. You, Nora? I'm Ethan. Gray Marlin sent me. Fire's almost over the crown. I can help. Then get in, she said. They slid into the channel and pulled hard. Ash fell like soft rain. Heat pressed their cheeks. At Silver Grove, the rumor proved true. A black box truck parked crosswise at the entrance, private security vests next to crossed arms. Private road, one called. Public lungs, Nora answered. Move it. They didn't, so she pivoted. Water is an old friend when asphalt turns its back. The canoe kissed a narrow bank between two leaning docks. Row 3, blue shutters. June sat on the stoop, shoulders curled, knuckles white around an inhaler that had given up. I'm here, Nora said, hand to shoulder. Match me. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow. Ethan raided the small kitchen, returned with a half-working inhaler and a bottle of water. They got June upright. They moved. Behind them, the fire hissed to itself in the trees. Back at the hangar, Doc had oxygen ready. June's color shifted from storm gray to stubborn pink. Nora stood in the doorway and let the tremor pass through her hands. Then she opened the net again. This is V. Nora, she said into the mic. We are an operations hub. If you have a flashlight, a blanket, a thermos, a spare battery, bring it. Alder Cove stands together. Voices poured in, a chorus of small offers that add up to survival. Water, masks, pickup trucks, a neighbor with room for cats. At 10 o'clock, the power died. The generator in the corner coughed awake like a faithful dog. Its sound, low, steady, felt like a promise. Gray Marlin, update. Crown is holding for now. If the wind swings, we eat smoke by 3. Copy. Doc, oxygen? 6 tanks in a van if we need to run the corridor. Lulu. Status at the Grove. Families staged on the waterfront. Stoves, tea, blankets. Kids down at the school gym. Their moms are holding the air. Received, Nora said. Morning came without birds. Only the chop of helicopter blades over the ridge and the smell of ash baked into every porch rail. The sea lay gray, refusing to shimmer. Nora Whitaker sat on the hangar steps with a mug of coffee so strong it could lift a nail. She hadn't slept in 20 hours, but her eyes were clear. Dispatchers learned to rest later. The fire was out. The town was not. The Coastal Chronicle headline waited on every doorstep. Retired dispatcher leads night operation. City Hall under fire. It showed her face under a floodlight, radio in hand, a boy at her shoulder. The caption called her the woman who saved Alder Cove. She hated it, because this story was never about her. Before noon, a messenger arrived, a young clerk in a wrinkled blazer clutching a manila envelope like a shield. Council meeting, 10 a.m. They want you present. Do they? Nora said, finishing her coffee. The clerk hesitated. They look angry. Good, she said. Anger means they're awake. The council chamber smelled of polish and nerves. Reporters packed the back wall. Cameras blinked red. The mayor's gavel trembled more than thunder. Beside him, the developer's lawyer, all frost and lipstick. And in the corner, the developer himself, this time in a sweater instead of a suit, eyes sunk but alert. Ms. Whitaker, the mayor began, you organized citizens without clearance. You transmitted on emergency bans. And saved half the town, someone interrupted from the press row. The mayor flushed. The lawyer leaned in. We recognize her intentions, she said, but there are laws for a reason. Nora rose. Her knees hurt, but her voice did not. For 30 years, I listened to people burn while someone said procedure. Paper does not save lives. Action does. Last night, action worked. A pause thick as smoke, then applause, loud, real. The mayor's gavel hit wood, useless as a spoon in a storm. Nora pulled a small stack of papers from her bag. These are copies of the closed session minutes from 3 weeks ago. You sold the North Spit with no public record. You marked fire safety reviews as not applicable. You blocked the only road to Silver Grove. The lawyer snapped, "You can't possess those documents." "I can," Nora said. "Your clerk gave them to me. She was tired of being told to lie." All eyes turned to the young woman at the end of the dais. She dropped her pen. Didn't deny a thing. The room erupted. Reporters shouting questions, citizens yelling words that had waited years to escape their throats. The mayor shouted for order, but the word had no home left to live in. Afterward, in the corridor, the developer caught up with Nora. "You know," he said quietly, "you create storms." "You build them," she replied. He rubbed his eyes. "I never meant harm. I thought progress was a straight line." "Progress," Nora said, "is only a line if you're not the one being erased." He almost smiled. "She reminds me of my mother," he murmured. "She fought everyone too." "What happened to her?" "She died. Alone." "I'm not alone," Nora said. "I'm surrounded." For the first time, he didn't argue. That night, the hangar glowed again. Not from fear, from life. People came with casseroles, blankets, buckets of paint. Ethan was running cable for a permanent radio hub. He called it Channel Nora. Everyone laughed, even Nora. Then the clerk appeared, eyes red, hand trembling. "I have something else," she whispered, holding out a flash drive. "Audio from that closed meeting. They plan to speed relocation by controlling access. I can't keep working there." "You just did your real job," Nora said. "Truth is the best rescue call." At dawn, a new headline hit. "Secret deals exposed, Alder Cove fights back." Front page photo, the hangar crowd, side by side, ordinary and unshaken. Caption, "A town that wouldn't move." And below it, a single quote from the radio log. "We're not heroes. We just remembered how to listen." By evening, the clouds gathered again, heavy with salt and promise. Reporters from Portland drove in. So did a man from the governor's office. The ridge still smoked. The marina fence still gleamed. And the people of Alder Cove still stood exactly where they had always belonged, on their own ground. Nora watched the ocean darken to pewter. In her pocket, the flash drive clicked against the radio keychain. Another storm was coming. Not of wind, of truth. She breathed in the sea and whispered to no one. "Alder Cove, this is V. Nora. We're still on the air." Morning crept in gray and quiet. The kind of quiet that carries weight. The ocean didn't crash. It whispered, low, uncertain, like a secret deciding whether to be told. Ash still clung to porch rails. Even the gulls were silent. Nora Whitaker stepped out of the hangar with her coffee mug and the little handheld radio. The horizon was pale silver, the color of something that had burned but refused to die. She turned the dial, listening to the static, the heartbeat of a town still awake. "Gray Marlin, this is V. Nora. Status check." The reply came steady. "All units accounted for. Ridge cooling, but the wind's changing. Again." Wind. Always the wind. It had a way of testing what people were built from. Behind her, Ethan appeared, the boy with too much determination for one heart. He had his notebook again, already half full of frequencies, names, and sketches of antenna towers. "Morning, Nora," he said. "Morning, kid. How's the network?" "All connected. Marlin's covering the docks in the school gym. Lulu's got the volunteers running supplies." "Oh, and the state guys showed up, with cameras." "Let them film," she said. "Maybe for once they'll point the lens at something that matters." By noon, Alder Cove had become a hive. The hangar buzzed with walkie-talkies and coffee pots, tables stacked with medicine, chargers, flashlights. They called it the Net. Not an organization, not a command center, just people, threaded together. When the reporters from Oregon Public arrived, Nora met them by the whiteboard. Her tone was calm, but her eyes still burned. Last night wasn't luck, she said into the microphone. It was communication. You don't wait for orders when fire's on your heels. You talk, you listen, you act. Pause. Here, that's how we survive. The journalist nodded slowly, lowering the mic. Would you call this leadership? Nora smiled faintly. No, call it remembering. The storm rolled in hours later. Not flames this time, but water. Thick clouds bruised the sky. Rain threatened the horizon like a fist closing. Gray Marlin's voice broke through the static. High tide rising faster than expected. Pressure drop on the bay. Might get a king tide by evening. Copy, said Nora. Sandbags to the north spit. Team of 5. Women run supplies. Kids. Indoors. School gym. Everyone else, stay linked. The hangar came alive again, not from fear but rhythm. Boots stomped. Bags filled. Hands moved faster than thoughts. A man in a pressed suit stepped inside just as the rain began to fall. He smiled like a politician trying to look human. James Rowland, he said. I represent the developers. You represented the problem, Nora corrected. He kept smiling. I came with an offer. We'll house the displaced residents in temporary motels, full meal stipends, small checks for relocation. Bribes with breakfast, Nora muttered. Rowland leaned closer. All I ask is that you step back. Stop this amateur radio operation before someone gets hurt. She looked him dead in the eyes. People already got hurt, Mr. Rowland. You just didn't stay long enough to hear them scream. He blinked, thrown off by the bluntness. You can't win this. I already did, she said, because I'm still standing where you wanted silence. He turned to leave. The rain caught him mid-step, like the sky itself refused to let him go clean. Within the hour, the storm made landfall. Winds ripped through the marina. The new luxury pier, the one built too fast, too cheap, started tearing itself apart. Gray Marlin's report cracked through the speakers. The fence is down. The floating docks are snapping. If it breaks loose, it'll slam the main road. Teams, move! Nora barked into the mic. Sandbags, anchors, tie everything you can. Dock, prep for injuries. Water surged. Masts screeched. The rain hissed like 1,000 snakes. Ethan and a crew of teens ran shoulder to shoulder with old fishermen, their faces lit by lightning. On 3, someone yelled. 1, 2, 3. They heaved the last line into place. For a second, just one. The dock held. Then another gust came. The wave rose higher. And the pier snapped, metal screaming. Nora stumbled back, catching herself on the doorframe. Everyone clear, she shouted. The debris missed the main road by 20 yards, close enough to be remembered. Inside the hangar, Doc stitched a man's arm while Lulu brewed coffee for 30. Still think we need permission to save ourselves? She muttered to no one. Nora sat at the radio again, her hair soaked, jacket dripping. Static. Then, a voice unfamiliar. This is State Communications Division. Unauthorized frequencies detected. You are interfering with emergency operations. Everyone froze. The voice continued sharper. You are ordered to cease transmission immediately. Before Nora could respond, a calm baritone cut in. This is Miller, State Emergency Coordinator. Authorization code 7 Alpha 3. Check your registry. A pause, then softer. Confirmed. Our apologies, sir. The hangar exhaled as one. Nora looked up at Miller, standing at the door, wet and smiling. Someone always tries to unplug the light, he said. Then we'll just keep plugging it back in, she replied. But not everyone came to help. Later that night, 2 men in dark jackets slipped into the hangar's back door. One crouched by the generator, wrench in hand. The other distracted Lulu with a fake question about fuel safety. Nora caught the movement from the corner of her eye. Hey, she said, voice sharp. What are you doing? Inspection, the man said without looking up. Funny, she said. I didn't call one. He stood, eyes flicking to the radio. You're making things complicated, lady. No, she said, stepping closer. I'm making things possible. He hesitated, and in that breath, the room shifted. People stood, watching. Even the generator seemed to growl behind her. He dropped the wrench. The two men slipped out into the rain. Lulu closed the door behind them. Who were they? She whispered. People who get paid to love darkness, Nora said. We prefer light. She wiped her hands on her jacket, touched the generator casing. It hummed steady under her palm. The tide finally peaked near midnight. The wind tore down half the marina fence, the fancy half. But the town? It held. In the glow of lanterns and cheap string lights, the people of Alder Cove worked until the rain grew tired. They patched roofs, checked neighbors, sang under their breath. Not a song of victory, a song of defiance. At 2 a.m., the sea began to calm. The clouds started to lift. Nora leaned on the doorframe, soaked, exhausted, and smiling faintly. Ethan approached, hair plastered to his forehead. Think it's over? Storms end, she said. But echoes don't. He laughed softly. You always talk like a movie. Then roll credits, she said. We earned them. He grinned. But deep inside, they both knew it wasn't the ending. Tomorrow would bring something new. Another kind. By morning, the storm was gone. The world looked rinsed but not clean, like a wound washed with salt water. Alder Cove breathed again, slow and uneven. Smoke, rain, and courage shared the same air. Nora Whitaker stood by the hangar window, watching the gray turn to blue. The flash drive lay on the desk beside her coffee, humming in her mind like a loaded gun she didn't want to fire. Play it, Ethan said softly from behind her. He looked older than his age now. Sleep-deprived, jaw tight, eyes red. She hesitated, then clicked play. Static first, then voices. If the residents refuse relocation, we control the utilities. That's illegal. So is losing money. Handle it quietly. And the dispatcher woman? She's retired, no authority. Then make her disappear from the meeting, file her as disruptive. Silence. Then another voice. Tired, trembling. I can't do this anymore. That's the clerk, Ethan whispered. Nora closed the file, her hand shaking slightly. Then that's all the proof we need. At City Hall, the marble floors still gleamed like nothing ever happened. But the crowd that morning wasn't quiet. Reporters, veterans, teachers, kids holding cardboard signs. Save Alder Cove. No one is disposable. We don't move for greed. The mayor looked older, the lawyer thinner, and the developer, Roland, stood near the back, unshaven, eyes unreadable. The hearing began. Ms. Whitaker, said the council chair, you've submitted evidence without authorization. You are not. Nora's voice cut clean through the room. I am a citizen. That's all the authorization I need. She plugged in the flash drive. The speakers crackled, and those voices, cold, careless, filled the hall like ghosts with microphones. Every sentence landed like a hammer. The crowd's silence deepened until it felt like prayer. When the recording ended, Nora didn't speak. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than any argument. The clerk standing in the corner began to cry quietly. Reporters filmed every tear. The lawyer gathered her papers, pretending her hands weren't shaking. The mayor whispered to the aide beside him. A whisper everyone heard anyway. Get the governor's office on the line. After the hearing, the crowd spilled outside. For the first time in years, Alder Cove didn't look tired. It looked alive. Voices overlapped. Laughter, relief, disbelief, all tangled together. Ethan jogged up to Nora, grinning like sunrise. You did it. She shook her head. We did it, and we're not done yet. He frowned. What do you mean? I mean we still have to rebuild. The docks, the homes, the trust. She smiled faintly. Paperwork doesn't stop the tide. That night, the hangar turned into a gathering again. Not emergency lights this time. Lanterns, candles, strings of Christmas bulbs someone found in storage. Music drifted from an old radio. Kids danced. Lulu served stew from a pot big enough to forgive everyone. Even Roland came. He looked like a man who'd forgotten how to stand tall but was trying anyway. He held a folder, not a contract. A donation pledge. Rebuild fund, he said quietly. I owe this town a lifetime. Nora looked at him for a long time, then nodded. Make sure it's the kind of lifetime you'd want to live here. He smiled, a little broken but real. I think that's the plan. Later, when the music dimmed and people drifted home, Nora walked down to the pier. The sea was calm, moonlight rippling like silver thread. She sat on the edge, radio in hand, its light a small, steady pulse in the dark. Gray Marlin, you on the air? A chuckle answered. Always, V. Nora. Thought you'd finally get some rest. Sleep is for people who don't remember too much. He laughed. Town's safe. Power's back. Fire crew's gone. We did it. We did, she said softly. They sat in silence, two voices linked by static and memory. Waves lapped against the dock, and somewhere in the distance, a buoy bell rang. Slow, patient, alive. Days turned into weeks. Rebuilding became routine. The governor's office officially reversed the land sale. Silver Grove remained untouched, homes repaired, gardens replanted, children painting murals on fences scorched by smoke. A local artist carved a wooden sign at the town entrance. It read, Alder Cove, the town that stayed. Reporters came and went. The headlines faded, but the frequency never went silent again. People kept radios tuned, not just for emergencies, but for check-ins, weather, birthdays, gossip, songs. The airwaves became a living heartbeat. One evening, months later, Ethan found Nora sitting outside with her coffee and the same old radio. He had a paper in hand, his college acceptance letter. Engineering, he said. Communications track. She smiled, proud but pretending to tease. So you're abandoning us. Not abandoning, he said. Expanding. He hesitated. You ever gonna retire for real? Nora laughed softly. I thought I did once. Then the world spoke, and I had to answer. She turned the dial, listening to faint voices. Children giggling. Fishermen reporting calm seas. A soft hum of a lullaby from Mrs. Barton's old porch. Listen, she said. That's the sound of us. Staying. Ethan stood quietly beside her, watching the light fade over the bay. The sky glowed the way only a place that survived can glow. Not perfect, not pure, but deeply human. And when the wind rose again, it carried not fear this time, but the sound of connection. The voice that holds the shore.